Hare Krishna. Okay, welcome to class 12, the final class of the Nectar of Devotion. Today we're going to look at chapter 19, Prema Bhakti, Bhakti in pure love for Krishna. And we'll also, it's a shorter chapter, we'll read that chapter or go through it, and then we'll also just review the whole Nectar of Devotion. Jai. And let's start with some kirtan.
Okay, sweet souls. So coming into your comfortable seat, inviting any movement, take a few deep breaths, shifting from everything prior to this moment to being here together in Sangha, in Satsang. Take a deep breath in, fill up. Open your mouth, exhale, let it go. Opening prayers. Inhale. Sangha and Beyond Ki, Shastra Study Group Ki, Hari Hari Bol, Bora Hari Bol.
Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shlakaya Chakshurunmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. All right, so last week we looked at Bhava Bhakti, devotional service in ecstatic love, ecstasy, and we reflected on these 9 symptoms of Bhava and what it would be like to have any or all of them in our relationship with these. So let's get some reflections on them, or anything we heard last week or read. Just a reminder what those 9 were. They were like wanting to use all your time in Krishna service, always being perseverant and patient, detached from all material attachment, not wanting any respect, certainty that Krishna will bestow his mercy, great hope, eagerness to serve, attachment to chanting, eagerness to describe Krishna's qualities, and desire to live in the places of Krishna's pastimes. So let's start with any reflections or comments or questions from that.
Haribol.
Haribol.
Haribol. I was thinking about your question of reflection about how to like what we see in pure devotees and just how inspiring that is. And, I was thinking a lot about my guru and thinking a lot about just his natural demeanor and how I remember reading once upon a time that, guru should be a living example of all of these incredible qualities. And when I was reading through this again and really reflecting about it more, I've also been recently really thinking about the 6 Goswamis. Since we started a few weeks ago, I don't know, a month ago, we were talking a lot about them in one of the conversations we had in class. And the section that is outlined Great Hope, there's something written by Rupa Goswami in there, and it's just really, really beautiful. And sometimes I feel like hope can feel so cliche. To me, that's just something that has always kind of like been like that for me in my whole life. And thinking about it in this really beautiful way, I simply wish and hope that somewhere or other I may be able to approach your lotus feet, and this hope is giving me pain because I think myself quite incompetent to approach that transcendental goal of life. And it's like so humbling, and hope can be so humbling. And a lot of times people say like they kind of use hope to like, I don't know, like kind of just like brush it off, right? Just brush it off. I hope this will get better. I hope. But really, it's just this really deep, humble mood. And I really loved that so much.
Yeah. There's a difference. I really appreciate that point, that there's a difference between hope as like a kind of panacea that we just take. It's like, yeah. Hope it. Anyway, sorry to hear you're going through that, but I hope it gets better. Versus the deep realized hope of a devotee who has actually understood, to some degree, to any degree, Krishna's amazing qualities and his mercy. That there's 6 items of. Let me look up the verse. But the 6 items of surrender that are mentioned, to accept things that are favorable for bhakti, reject things that are unfavorable, to always to firmly believe in the Lord's protection, and to feel exclusively dependent on the mercy of the Lord. Those two especially, that the Lord is my protector and the Lord is my exclusive maintainer. And it's like, that's actually, when it's coming from a devotee with realization, that's a very powerful and deep thing. Is that Rupa Goswami is not hoping that, some fortunate accident happens to him, in the chaotic life of, the world, or what, maybe something good will happen. He's not just like thinking that, oh, on the strength of my own qualities, I'll get there. He's actually basing that prayer off of a deep appreciation for what Krishna is actually capable of. That, he's the only person who can actually protect me, and he's the only person who has this degree of dedication to those who are even trying to serve him. So I am sure he will protect me. So yeah, it's a deep thing, and that's a beautiful prayer, famous prayer, and good reason why Srila Prabhupada brings that out for us as an example of Shabanta, of this ecstatic symptom of deep and abiding hope in Krishna's mercy. Thank you. Other reflections on the readings, the class, the discussions, the recording, symptoms of bhava.
I've been thinking a lot about this concept of certainty and how I go through waves of feeling certain and then big waves of uncertainty. And it could be something in my material life, it could be something in my spiritual life. And I wonder whether absolute certainty is possible, in the sense, like, we're all striving for prema, we're all striving to, like, not come back in a future life, right? And achieve sort of the ultimate reunion with source. And I've been really trying to not get hung up on feeling like I need some absolute certainty, that I really just need that feeling in my body and in my heart that gives me that feeling of, like, yes, this is real, and that it's consistent. I think I'm seeking consistency, and I know that life is, like bobbing on the ocean waves, but in my own mind, I'm still trying to get to this place where I have a more level set
Yeah,
amount of certainty, if that makes sense.
absolutely. Yeah, there's a really powerful way in which consistency is actually the key in our spiritual practice. Is like, part of what I heard in what you're saying, at least because I can identify, because I actually have gone through this too, or still go through it, is that there's a part of the intelligence and mind that wants to have everything right away and get it, kind of like grasp it, and kind of like, get your mind all wrapped around it and fully, make it yours. And that doesn't work with Krishna, because he's the totality of everything, which is good, because otherwise he'd be boring. Ever had that? You have like a new hobby or a new car or a new game or a new thing, and it's like, oh, this is great. I can't wait to like crack this and understand it. And eventually you do. And it's not fun anymore. Krishna is not like that. So there's that part of us that we have to just kind of like teach how to be patient. And there's a deeper part of us that you said, there's a deeper knowing, right? And that comes from consistency, in our bhakti practice. And I feel like you asked the question, is it possible to really know? And then you kind of answered it, that it is, but not up here, right? If it were possible, then to just figure it out up here, then so many more intelligent persons than all of us would have done it already. Would have, like, through the power of their piercing intelligence, just like burned a hole through Bhagavad Gita by staring at it hard enough and extracted Krishna for their own use. But it doesn't work that way. It's like you actually have to submit yourself to the processes of bhakti. And if you do that consistently, I see you nodding along, it's like you actually have realized that by doing that consistently, even to some, like practical degree, whatever that may be, even if it's 1,000 times less than what Rupa Goswami did, right? That actually attracts Krishna, and then we feel him. Thank you.
I'm not caught up on viewing last week's class, but I am caught up on the reading. And one of the things that I was really moved by was, one of the symptoms of ecstatic love is, a physical change in your body and tears, right? Like there was a moment in India where we were at the Govardhan Eco Village at Mangala Arti when I felt like the deities were looking straight at me, and I just erupted in tears of just pure love and joy and bliss. And that, just reading through this, it just reminded me of that, and how, I don't know, everything's very visceral with me, as your buddy there knows. But yeah, when I feel it inside, it's just so moving. And reading about that in there was really interesting to read it that way.
Thank you. Yeah. And as we go on in our bhakti practice, when we have, if you have like a little experience here, a little experience there, then you start to actually become competent to perceive the difference between material emotion and spiritual emotion, right? Because actually, so much of what the externals of our emotional experience are determined just by the body we're in. I mean, we have examples from people who have changed gender or have taken like different hormone therapy, right? And they'll tell you that as soon as they started taking more testosterone, although their internal emotional experience was the same, tears would not come from their eyes. And then, or if they're transitioning the other way, from male to female, at the same internal emotional experience, tears would come from the eyes, just because of the different hormones, the makeup of the body. The internal experience is there, and then the body manifests in whatever way it manifested according to one's karma. But that's all just a material experience. But when one starts to have experiences in relationship to Krishna's deity, Krishna's name, Krishna's devotees, and these kinds of things, then one feels that this is actually different. You will feel for yourself, and you're feeling for yourself the difference between that kind of experience and the experience of, people can cry for any number of reasons, or feel like crying, whether they actually do, for any number of experiences. So I appreciate the reminder that actually our emotional lives here in this world, they're basically, I actually made a note about this. Let me refer to my notes here. That our material emotions are distortions of original spiritual emotions, right? And our whole process is to direct our emotions to Krishna. And it can be tears, it can be excitement, it can even be lamentation in relationship to Krishna as possible. But whatever's in relationship to Krishna, that emotion becomes spiritualized. And that's our whole process. Our whole process is to reconnect ourselves with Krishna and have the spiritual versions, the real versions of our emotional capacity. Thank you. Yeah.
So I'd love to share if I can. I think, I kind of feel like I'm in a similar vein to a couple of comments that were made. It's kind of like you go through these little weird kind of stages, right? And I think that, keeping in mind that this is a science, I think is really important, because there's scientific method and there's things that, and other things we try to prove or do, that there's like a process to it. And I think that, one of the takeaways for me, and like kind of really showing exactly what these qualities are, is like you can relate back on kind of how Tanya mentioned to being in the Dham. It's like, okay, that's one of the things we're supposed to do as part of this scientific method, right? And why? Because it can create those things with us. Being with pure devotees, like, I've been in the presence of some Prabhupada disciples, and you leave them and all of a sudden my chanting is better, because of being with the pure devotee. And all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, chanting's easy. And then you go through 6 months of like not, And all of a sudden chanting's the hardest thing ever. And it's just, I guess for me, I kind of went into a little bit of like a, ooh, what am I doing here? Like I thought I was getting there. And then it's like all of a sudden you have a little setback. But these are like reset buttons. It's kind of to say, hey, if you want attachment to chanting the holy names, like then you've got to do it. And you also have to be around people that are doing it to give you the encouragement and the hope and the, you know, the example of doing it. And you have to have these different mentors because the world is so harsh and so easy to make you like to pull you away from this stuff. And, you know, it's just not that we're not capable of it, but that we got to do work with it. And when we think we're at the bottom, it's kind of like we do get these little lifelines. So I just appreciate the fact that like, while I am not, gosh, like I'm like still, I feel like on the first rung of said ladder, it's just nice to be like, okay, here it's written out. I'll keep, and then it makes me want to recognize those traits in people and then kind of put them in my memory bank to try to emulate to continue to move forward up that ladder. So I think it's just been really sweet to kind of say, okay, like I don't know that there's any hope of even getting like close, but at least I have, you know, some sort of inspiration that it's at least possible in one of my thousands of lifetimes.
Yeah, we have a map. We have a map, we have guides. It's very clearly laid out. It's very refreshing to know that even when we're dealing with such a subjective experience, there is a science. Although it's personal and it's individual and the exact shape it takes, it depends on everybody's life. There are, like, one of the principles you mentioned is like the principle of guidance. Like you can't be a great tennis player without a coach. You just some things in life just make it really clear you have to have guidance. And so spiritual life is like that too. So we actually have to have guidance. And our acharyas have talked about that. Rupa Goswami talks about that. It's there in the Nectar of Devotion. And like you said, if I want to actually chant good japa, then it's good to know that there are these things that if I put myself in front of them, they help me. Tulsi, the devotees of the Lord, being in a holy place where Krishna has his pastimes. There's so many reminders there. There's the deities, there's the devotees, there's the actual place itself, and all these things actually elicit remembrance in the heart. And the science is laid out for us that, okay, maybe I can't do all of it, but if I know all these different signposts and if I'm aware, then I can organize my life where I even get some degree, some percentage of this. Then it's so much safer. It's so much more practical than wandering blind. Imagine, you know, you're thinking like, I want to know God, and you have no idea where to start. No Mahamantra, no devotees. It's like, what would you do? This is all actually Krishna's mercy that it's so clearly explained. In fact, the six Goswamis, one of the major missions they were given by Lord Chaitanya himself was to write, because their lifetimes are very important, but what they're writing is actually a clear representation of how to live like them, right? And so those books and their living example and their own students and the temples they established, all of that is a manifestation of Lord Chaitanya's mercy, so that we can actually be surrounded, really surrounded, and help others be surrounded so they can plug in as much as possible in their lives.
I wanted to share too, you just sparked something and I went to look it up so I don't get it wrong. There was a quote Keshava Swami shared in his Instagram, kind of was like along the same lines of something you just said. And he says, in weight training, the level of exercise you did 1 year ago just won't do it. You have to multiply the repetitions, up the weight, or increase the speed. Spiritual development is no different, right? So if we want to increase, if we're kind of like complaining about where we're at because we're stagnant, well, like what have we done to increase that muscle? And again, I think this is a lot of self-reflection to say like, okay, this is where we're aiming. And if I'm doing the same stuff I was doing a year ago, then I'm going to stay where I was a year ago. And that's okay. I'm not going to beat myself for it. But also if I really do want to progress, then like, you got to keep doing the things. And
Right.
I think that's a helpful metaphor.
If there's some part of your heart that feels like not completely satisfied, it's because often it's because we could be doing more. We may not know how to do it, or what part of our practice we can improve, what we do or how we do what we do. But there's just some way in which it's like it's calling us to attention that there is actually more that can be done here. Krishna in the heart's like, well, you can give a little more. And it's not, yeah, anyway, so much can be said about that. Thank you. Kishori?
I was I really appreciate how we spoke about how there's two ways to attain bhava or advance on this, through the stages of bhakti, being constant association, and then there's also special mercy, right? And that you said that every pure devotee shares two of the same qualities,
Right.
right? That everything that comes out of their mouth is merciful and steadiness.
Steadiness. Yeah.
And so we sort of talked about all of those things in these reflections, and that, yeah, finding association with devotees who also are merciful, even that we're not pure devotees, right? But we are on we're in our practice and we're on our path, and how to take guidance from those that are more senior than us and also who clearly don't have an agenda, right? Or their own ego is involved in how they're sharing and speaking and guiding us. And then the other piece is the quality of bhava, perseverance and patience. I think that's a really relevant and also important quality to be around more of and to cultivate more of in each of our lives and practice. And similar to how Aaron shared, right, having the patience and the perseverance to stay the path, even though if you're not seeing the results you want yet, but to know that there is, as Eileen shared, a spiritual science.
Yeah.
And a key aspect of that is constant association.
Well,
we get it from devotees.
Part of that is that if you're feeling discouraged or you feel like I could be doing more and I don't know when I'm going to get there, it's really valuable to have that perspective from people around you, that you can go to someone and be like, how am I doing? Somebody who actually you choose carefully, that they've been examining you, that you work with them, you're under their guidance, and they can tell you like, you're doing great. Here's all the ways you've improved, because it's so easy to get discouraged and get lost in like, oh, I'm not there yet. Everybody, everywhere in the world, every devotee is asking these kinds of questions because that's, we're kind of being pulled. And we want to be like not pulled by the material energy. We want to get closer and closer to Krishna. So we're kind of sitting with that gap that's there. But if you have that guidance, then they can tell you, well, but yeah, look at all these things. Look at all these ways, internally and externally, you've grown. This is a great time of year for looking at that too, because this is a natural. We've created, this is the end of the year, this is the beginning of the year, and so it's a natural time to look back and then look forward based on where you've come from, how you're doing, where you're going. So do that under guidance. It's super bona fide activity. Thank you. All right. And we'll have a lot more time for reflection because we're actually a lot of today is going to be just reviewing the whole Nectar of Devotion as per what you're inspired by or have been inspired by, because this is a short chapter. But moving into chapter 19. Chapter 19 is devotional service and pure love of God, prema. So as we heard about bhava, this prema can be there by our practice, and it can also be there by special mercy. Prabhupada gives again the example of like getting an honorary degree. You can get an honorary degree at any time, but a devotee, although devotees understand that Krishna is all merciful and he can really just snap his fingers and make it happen, the mood of a devotee is not to demand or expect that from Krishna, like because that's actually contradictory to the humility of a devotee. Because a devotee is actually like, yeah, Krishna can do, and I'm relying on his mercy, but that doesn't stop me from doing my bit, even though my bit may feel very small, right? Our bit and Krishna's bit, in a way, is 50-50 because there's one of us and one of him, right? But in another way, he's a little stronger than we are, And so we can feel like, well, what good is it for me to do my bit? Krishna should just lift me out of this mire on his own. And it's like, well, yeah, he can do that. But what we see from the lives of pure devotees is they don't sit around waiting for the honorary degree. They do whatever they can, even if it feels insignificant. And that very much attracts Krishna's mercy. So that's there here at the beginning of this chapter again. And there's a description, actually definition of prema that's given in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Samyang masurnata svanto mamatva tishayang kitaha bhavasa eva sandratma buddhaif prema nigadyate. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 23, verse 7. when that bhava refers to ecstatic love, which we talked about last week, softens the heart completely, becomes endowed with a great feeling of possessiveness in relation to the Lord, and becomes very much condensed and intensified. It is called prema, love of Godhead, by learned scholars. So a little bit about possessiveness. As we develop in bhakti, there is a development of a sense that we belong to Krishna, right? Krishna, like we said, Krishna is my maintainer, and Krishna is my exclusive protector. That I belong to him. I'm not going to go to any other person or place or idea for my shelter. He's my real shelter. I belong to him. And even higher than that, so when it comes to these levels of prema, is even higher. There's mamatva. Mamatva means a sense that Krishna belongs to me. Krishna is mine. Not just that I'm his. Krishna is mine. There's a way in which we see, like in the residence of Vrindavan, Mother Yashoda, she has so much love for Krishna. And yeah, she's always dedicated to serving Krishna, but she's also thinking, like, if I don't feed him, he's going to suffer. You know, he's mine. He's my boy. If I don't train him how to be an honest gentleman, if he keeps doing these rascal things, he's going to grow up to be a scoundrel. I have to take care of him. There's a sense of like deep and abiding possessiveness. And in the material world, possessiveness is not a good thing. In Bhagavad Gita, in so many places, Krishna talks about being nirmamo nirahankara samadukha sukhakshami. Nirmamo means, you know, without feeling of possessiveness, because what we know as possessiveness is nothing more than just the material construct of thinking that something that's Krishna's energy is actually belonging to us, because we think it's for our sense gratification. So getting free from that illusion is very good, because it helps us come to the level of being equipoised and really seeing that I don't actually own anything, which is conducive to recognizing that it actually belongs to Krishna. And then you make more advancement. So that's true, but this is not what we're talking about here. This is not a material kind of possessiveness that the devotee has at the level of prema. The level of prema, they're actually tying Krishna with the binding of pure love for him, right? They're inextricably bound to Krishna, and he's bound to them. And their intense feeling that he belongs to them is manifested in service, right? What it means is that they're deeply interested in serving him, and they are serving him all the time. And so it's not a material thing. It's not like it's not about belief systems or, you know, owning of some material property. It's manifested in constant engagement and service. So a little bit about that part of the possessiveness, because that's there in the definition of prema. Now, Prabhupada writes here about prema. It says, great authorities like Bhishma have explained that love of Godhead, prema, means completely giving up all so-called love for any other person. According to Bhishma, love means reposing one's affection completely upon one person, withdrawing all affinities for any other person. This pure love can be transferred to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when we hear that, it's important to understand, if we have that kind of exclusivity in the material world, in material relationships, it can serve a purpose. Like, you know, we may be in a monogamous relationship and there's only one person that I love that way. Okay, but that's why it's a material relationship. You know, we don't love everybody that way. There's the in group and the out group. And that's the way it has to be materially, because when you're doing with material, we only have a certain amount of capacity, right? So this idea of like loving everybody or everybody's equal or like feeling connection to all living beings, that's actually a spiritual idea. It's not a material idea. You can't materially love everybody. You can't actually have something in common with everybody materially. There's always going to be some people who you don't have some things in common, material things in common. But you can love everybody if you're loving Krishna. How? Because he's actually the super soul. He's actually in everybody's heart. He's the only person for which this is true. If you dedicate yourself, you create like a international society for Shami Pras consciousness. You try to worship me, you're not gonna get very far, because I'm not actually connected to all living entities like Krishna is. You know, you can pick any other part and parcel, and make them your world and worship them and put them on an altar. And it's actually uncomfortable. You know, ever had that? Or like if you're like a teenager and somebody has a crush on you and they can't stop staring at you, it's actually like, go away. Enough. Yeah. But Krishna, you know, I heard one devotee put it this way: you can stare at him all day. He can take all of it. Anything you want to give him, he can digest all that love. Nobody else can do that. That's why he's actually worth surrendering to. And yeah, when we talk about reposing one's love completely upon one person, if you choose Krishna as that person, the symptom of that, the result of that includes that you will love everybody else. That's not true if you give your love exclusively to your pet dog or your favorite sports, you know, personality or actor or, you know, yourself. It just doesn't work that way. But Krishna is actually the supreme person. And total love for him means you will have deep compassion for all living entities. You will have intuition for understanding their experience, and you'll connect to them and feel better relationships even. So just to contextualize that point, that real love means reposing one's love exclusively, only on one person. It's true, but that only works with Krishna. Otherwise, it's just sectarianism. It's like, oh yeah, I love my family, but if you're not my family, no, etc. You know. So this chapter really deals with developing prema through the execution of regulative devotional service, either devotional service that's vaidhi, that's based on rules and regulations, in which case one develops a kind of prema that is that has to do with recognizing Krishna's opulence, you know, or whether it's developed through devotional service that is raganuga, that is spontaneous, in which case one develops spontaneous prema. And there's a discussion of Krishna's mercy and how that is sufficient for developing prema. A discussion of association with pure devotees. And Srila Prabhupada really just concludes by talking about how there is this progression that we've heard many times. Adau Shraddha, first there's faith, then there's sadhu sangha, and there's some association with devotees. Then there's some regulated practice, bhajana kriya. Then there's anartha nivritti. Actually, all these stages kind of like melt into each other to some degree, but this is the progression. Then there's the beginning of anartha nivritti, which goes on for some time, of purification of the material byproducts we've been holding on to for so long, so many lifetimes, the unwanted things. Then nishta, steadiness. Ruchi, positive taste. Asakti, attachment. And possessiveness starts to come in, attachment to Krishna. And bhava and prema. So in this way, he's kind of going full circle, helping us to understand where we've come from, in the study of nectar devotion to get to prema. And really, this is a great place to pause. This is the 19th chapter. There are other chapters in this book. It gets more esoteric. You can definitely continue reading. Nothing wrong with that. In the progression of what experienced students of bhakti have explained, generally, you know, reading the first and studying the first 19 chapters of Nectar of Devotion is something you do, and then you continue reading like Srimad Bhagavatam, other books. You can come back to Nectar of Devotion and read some more of that text. It's indispensable, but these first 19 chapters are more immediately practical. And to prove that, we're gonna pause now with just offering our obeisances to Rupa Goswami and gratitude to him and Srila Prabhupada for giving us Nectar Devotion. And we're going to go back with our minds and our words to what we heard. I have my notes here from all the classes. Anything that you heard at all, anything that stood out, I will just start us off. We heard about the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service way back in first class. Like it's the beginning of all auspiciousness. It's pure devotional service, that is. It gives a result that it makes even liberation seem insignificant, so forth. Then we heard 64 items of bhakti, right? Each one of those is subdivided sometimes, and we heard about offenses to be avoided. We heard a lot about the 5 most potent forms of bhakti from that 64 list of 64. We have 5 most important. And we heard about bhava bhakti and prema bhakti. We had discussions about how to apply this in our lives, how to not give in to hopelessness, what to do if you're feeling like, I want to do more, but I still have these material attachments. Eileen talked about that last week. We had a nice discussion around that. So let's get any reflections now on anything you heard today or anything from the Nectar devotion. We'll get some reflections, comments, and questions from this text. And who wants to start us off? I know you all have your notes in front of you, so there's no excuse.
This is so good. I mean, even
So
looking
good.
back at the first class when we were talking about even just the meaning of the nectar of devotion, about you know, the spiritual emotion of bhakti. And then we talked about the rasas and the 12 rasas and the five primary.
Yeah, 5
the
primary,
7
7 secondary.
And you know, that bhakti rasa is so, it's different than like the material rasa, the flavors, the tastes that we have in the material world, which are flickering. It's like one day you like vanilla ice cream, the next you're like, oh, I would never eat that again, right? It's like, and you like strawberry ice cream. It was just a mundane example, but our bhakti rasa, it's different. It's this mellow of loving service, right? That is of such a different quality. We talked about boga and tiaga, right? Like so many.
Yeah, Boga Tiaga, enjoying and then renouncing.
Yeah, and how that's basically what we're doing all the time, you know, in many ways.
That's the mind. That's the only 2 functions of the mind, are accepting and rejecting. Which is why when we're on the level of our mind, first, he loves me not. It's like, that's all it is. It's just like you said, I love vanilla ice cream. Next week, I can't stand vanilla ice cream. Right? Back and
Yeah.
forth, always.
Right,
Yeah.
so flickering. And just, I mean, I could say a million things, but I'll stop so everyone else can share, but how the nectar devotion speaks to the ongoing experience of the devotee with Krishna,
Mm.
who is always with us. And that's possible to feel because when we are engaged in service all the time.
Jai. Yeah. One thing I had, that's all from like kind of the first class.
Yeah.
One thing I had written down around that was that rasa is actually experience. Rasa is experience, not analysis. Although you can analyze it, I mean, and we do,
Yeah.
based on what the Goswami gives us, and it's valuable. But ultimately, rasa is experienced, which is good because we're not gyanis. We're not here to just like think about Krishna and understand him. We're here to actually experience him, which is possible in a service relationship and in these ways that have been delineated. And the rasas there are the experiences of the devotees in that giving and receiving of service. Jai, more reflections.
We had Radha during this too. We were talking about Radha. So good.
One of the things I loved also from the first class, going back to the beginning, was you said something about we never feel full from the desire for spiritual connection. And I'm paraphrasing, of course, like how I interpreted your words, but I just think that's such a really powerful analogy in a way, like what it makes you think of. Like we think about what it feels to be satiated when we eat.
Yeah.
Or in other ways, but the fact that this is sort of this just limitless thing is really, really beautiful. And then the other thing you said was that bhakti is the bridge to people we have nothing else in common with.
Yeah.
And I think we've all experienced that, right? Or we're suddenly with people that we would maybe have no other reason to be connected to them or with them. And how bhakti alone can create this connection and closeness and trust in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very beautiful thing to share devotional service with other people. Yeah, I think I may have been in that class, but I gave the example of the devotees in South Africa during apartheid and how the country was being torn apart. Really politically, I mean, there's like violence, but in the temples where the devotees were practicing bhakti, they invited reporters to come in and look, like, you know, European, African, black, white, young, old, female, male, can speak this language, can speak another language, like so much diversity, but everyone was getting along because they weren't relating on the material platform. They were mostly relating on the spiritual platform. Like, they're still devotees in practice, they still have some attachment to the material world, but there was so much attachment to Krishna that it was an island in that country. And how many places in the world are dealing with divisiveness and violence? You know, how many families even are dealing with that? And this is the proof that actually really applying this, not just theoretically talking about it, we can see unity. That's the fabric of it. As we were talking about earlier, Krishna, by loving Krishna, we can actually love other people. Otherwise, the so-called love is just relative. Yeah, thank you. Tanya.
One thing that I was looking back on is, it's all in it's our inherent nature to be loving and to be spiritual, and we just have to peel away all of that material covering. And really, our life is about, finding our humility and developing really good character. And one of the things, I put stars next to my favorite comments that you made, and one of them, maybe you were quoting somebody else, I'm not sure, but the safest place to be is in the middle of a kirtan.
Yeah.
I just
That's a
love
quote.
that. Yeah. And I just think, way to keep the transcendental vibration going by just, trying to put myself in the middle of a kirtan, even if I can't have one anywhere nearby. In my mind and in my practice, I'm trying to put myself in the middle of a kirtan. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, advancing devotee, you talked about humility, and advancing devotee feels like I want to be in Krishna's protection. A neophyte devotee can be you can understand you're like not very advanced if you're like, oh yeah, sometimes they'll practice bhakti and like, but actually I can take care of myself. I'm good. A little Krishna here and there is fine, but advancing devotee, like they're eager to be in the kirtan. Have like just play a kirtan. Why would you not play a kirtan if you can? Externally or internally in your mind. It's like that strong desire to be in Krishna's association. Yeah, thank you. I want more. I'm greedy. Give me more.
Bhakti is built on previous evidence.
Bhakti is built on previous evidence. What's the context of that?
Well, it was back in chapter 7, I think, like our gurus keep handing down in session. Things don't really change. It's like,
Like, it's not someone making it up, it's been passed down
right.
in the disciples, evidence that it works and that the growth comes and the stages happen. And so it's that previous evidence that can also give us the faith to continue to practice like that.
Yes.
Yeah, there's these three things: Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. The Shastra is the spiritual literature, the like approved spiritual literature. And sadhus are persons who have applied that in their lives, and their lives are examples of what the Shastra is talking about. And Guru is specific persons that we have a living relationship with that exemplify that. And it's with these three that we can actually understand how things work. And they're in relationship to each other. They all confirm one another. Yeah, that's our epistemology. That's how we figure out what is actually true. It's not just made up. Yeah. It's critical. It's actually critical. Prabhupada says in one place, the idea that one can practice bhakti outside of the association of devotees is just a hallucination. It's like it's always practiced with association of devotees, and the relationship of a practitioner with their seniors, including but not limited to their gurus, is necessary. Yeah. So important, because that's where that comes from, those examples.
Mm.
Thank you.
I have a couple of
Great.
random quotes here. No one can live without loving someone else.
That's from the preface.
What's missing is our spiritual connection.
Mm.
And we are dependent on the source. And without that connection, we forget what our true purpose is.
Mm.
And this all kind of come together. And then this is, I think you said this in the same, it's the same part, was triangulating to figure out where we are in our spiritual journey and finding the true spiritual rasa. And I put this in quotes, but I don't know if it's something. The devotees didn't love Krishna because he was God. They loved God because he was Krishna.
Mm. Yeah, in at the level of spontaneous love, the devotees are not serving simply because of formal recognition of Krishna's opulences. It's interesting because like somebody may have a very shallow relationship with Krishna. Like practically, if you go to India, everyone's heard of Krishna, and in a lot of cases, that's just because of it's like the same way somebody would know about, I don't know, Albert Einstein or some really famous person. Krishna is just he's woven into the fabric of Indian culture, right? So it's like that's a shallow relationship. Like, they're not actually even aware of his godhood. Most people, a lot of people, and then one starts to become a practicing devotee. One becomes actively interested in understanding how Krishna is God and engaging oneself properly with him and putting him in the right context and ourselves in relationship properly. And when that relationship actually becomes spontaneous, then his own godhood is not as important. We're actually spontaneously attracted to him because he's the all-attractive person who happens to be God. And that's actually, that's what Lord Chaitanya is giving, is that the mood of service of the residents of Vrindavan, which is not, it's not that they don't know Krishna has all these opulences. That's not what they're driven by. They're actually so in love with him. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I think what you were saying, that first thing was from the preface. Prabhupada actually says, the basic principle of the living condition is that we have a general propensity to love someone. No one can live without loving someone. Even an animal like a tiger has this loving propensity, at least in a dormant stage. The missing point, however, is where to repose our love so that everyone can become happy. The missing point is Krishna, and the nectar of devotion teaches us how to stimulate our original love for Krishna and how to be situated in that position where we can enjoy our blissful life. I love that preface. I think it's one of the best things Prabhupada's written.
We also talked about how bhakti is for everybody. It's a religion of the soul.
Right.
Right. And how that we're all lovers of God and that's who we are. And it's everyone's right.
Yeah.
Whatever way that manifests, or which path you take, or which religion or spiritual path, right?
Yeah. Real religion means anything that helps you develop your love for God. That's it. Good. More comments. Do you have any questions or reflections?
I loved when you spoke in the very, very beginning, you said that, I want to just find it, the mood of Lord Chaitanya and his followers, that's what the Nectar Devotion is about, and this is a very special gift for us. And helping to remember and to remind us of what a gift it is every time we can pick up Shastra in this way. And for me, I feel like, that single sentence that you spoke there really helped me think more and more about the mood of Lord Chaitanya in general. And that's something that, we speak a lot about Krishna, we talk about Krishna all the time, of course, but really thinking about the mood of Lord Chaitanya has really been something that I've been holding pretty dear since you've said that, which was really amazing because it's a huge part of Gaudiya Vaishnavism.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, there were other things, but that was just one.
Thanks. Yeah, we can't ever separate ourselves from that. Rupa Goswami is like Lord Chaitanya's right hand. So dear. is just affecting that desire. Lord, like it's like you said, the gift of remembering that we've been given a gift, not taking it for granted. Yeah, Lord Chaitanya's mood is the mood that he wants everyone. He wants everyone in. And Jiva Goswami puts it this way: in this age, our qualification is our disqualification. Like what he's giving is so high. The more we advance, the more we realize this is actually absurd. And I was even let in the door. But that's actually how Lord Chaitanya operates. He wants that. It's that overarching, why he's referred to as the ocean of mercy. And his servants are just really just putting that into effect. Yeah, so this book, and then our discussions around it, and all of our practice is these are all the manifestations of Lord Chaitanya's gifts to us. Yeah.
I love that reflection, Melgate. Yeah, I have written here, Bhakti is a gift from Mahaprabhu. Everything is a kirtan from that.
Yeah. I remember talking about how it's like the kirtan that Lord Chaitanya was in 500 years ago is still echoing down, right? And every time we sit down and chant Hare Krishna or hear someone else chant Hare Krishna, it's just an echo of that kirtan. It's just expanding. Every time we read one of these books, it's the same kirtan. It's coming from him. Like he's actually uttering the name. He's giving it to us. He's giving us the qualification. It's like not independently coming. It's 100% just being, like if you've ever been around a kirtan that just drags you in, or a devotee who you look at them and you're just drawn. It's like it's all just Lord Chaitanya magnetically bringing us in closer, more and more to intimate service to Krishna. Yeah.
For me, there was like two massive like experiences I had during this class. One was when you gifted me that Bhagavatam verse. So that will never
Which
leave
would
me.
change your life.
I mean, it did. So
Changed my life.
you. I'm gonna keep thanking you over and over again for that because they just keep reading it. But the second one for me, I was just so locked in, was our third class. And we listen to Wisdom of the Sages and we have takeaways. I had so many takeaways when we were going through chapters 2 and 3 in that class. For some reason, like I even remember where I was sitting in the room. Like I just felt very connected to what you were saying. And so I thought I would share like just a couple of the sound bites because for me, it kind of like wrapped it all up. The one was Krishna is all attractive, but devotional service attracts even him. And we have Radharani as a model of that. And so it's about becoming more attractive to Krishna. And what can I do to have that, rather to be attracted to him? Not like, what can I do to get more whatever? It's like, how can I become more attractive to Krishna? So I love that concept that keeps me sane when kind of trying to work through how to progress. Right. I think it was also really beautiful that when we talked about bhakti and how we were each gifted this, it's the causeless mercy of a devotee, not due to good or bad karma. And that, you told the story of the starfish, which also stuck with me so much, that like, there's millions of starfish and like all the devotee wants to do is spread Krishna consciousness. And even though there's millions of starfish and he may only pick up 5 or 6 and throw them in, it's really meaningful to the 5 or 6 that got thrown back in. So that was just such a cool kind of idea to say like, okay, how were we rescued? And also how we can then move forward as we, become and fall more in love with Krishna. And that, it's all inside us. So bhakti is not learned, that our soul is eternally connected to Krishna. And as we become more conscious and aware of this, our hearts become cleansed. So it's not like there's a special few. It's not like it's an external consideration. It's like we use our free will to determine if we want to engage, but it's there. So I thought that was really beautiful. I loved when we talked about bhakti is not a sectarian concept. I'm reading a book right now called Soul Boom by Dwight Schrute from The Office, and he talks about spiritual revolution. And it's this concept of it's not sectarian, that it's not just for Hare Krishnas, but everyone is developing, because it's our nature is developing or should be developing love for the divine. And, by nature, people aren't against it, but they might just be too busy or wrapped up to grow into it. And they have these, the control of Maya. So even as we go deeper into bhakti, Maya is gonna be there, man, and it will still engage with us just to see if we're really trying. And you know, so we're all made for it. So it's just a beautiful concept to say this is not some sectarian special club necessarily, that this is for us to kind of embody and share. So I loved that. And then it kind of, when you think about the do's and don'ts, I just love the soundbite that the do's are to help you remember Krishna and the don'ts are to help you not forget him. And I thought that's such a better way to look at rules and regulations and things like that, that, you know, if that's the reality of it and that's what we're trying to do, it makes it much more palatable. So I just felt like that class was just so chock full of these little bite-sized pieces that you can just be like, I'm losing my mind. Let me go back and read my notes and remember what like the core stuff is. And yes, I can do this. And I think that class for me really gave me that hope.
I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah, the essence of all the rules and regulations are there to serve the fundamental rule of always remember Krishna and never forget him. And all the do's are helping us to remember Krishna. That's why we do them. And all the don'ts are the things that we avoid because they'll just engender forgetfulness. And then if you're ever confused with what to do in any given moment or not to do, ask yourself, what'll help me remember Krishna? What'll help me to not forget him? And if you don't know, then ask someone else who does know. But that's the criteria. Those two things. And all the different stuff is just, they're just servants of those two things. And I really appreciated what you said about we're not trying to get Krishna, we're trying to attract him through our service. Bhaktisiddhanta said that. He said, don't try to see the Lord, try to act in such a way that he would want to see you, right? And that he had a lot to say on this principle of darshana. Darshana means, you know, when you go to see the deity, it means actually to see. But the idea is that actually when we're taking darshan, it's not that actually we're seeing Krishna. We're presenting ourselves to be seen by him. It's like, here I am. And here's why I'm here, is because this is my teacher, this is who I'm under. Please recognize me, and give me service. Let me develop in my relationship. It was like actually reporting for duty. I'm here, please see me. So he talked a lot about that. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Prabhupada's guru, did. It's a very deep thing. Because it's based on that devotional humility of like, who am I, to like capture Krishna with my senses, but I would like to act in such a way that he would be pleased to cast his glance on me. Jai. So many gems you've all collected. Beautiful. Any more?
Yeah, I have
Oh, great.
one that I just keep looking at, but it was in the beginning, so chapter 1, but it was like our second class. So it just says that bhakti, pure devotional service brings immediate relief from all kinds of material distress. And then it goes on and says about the destruction of ignorance. This sincere practice of bhakti brings out knowledge from within, like naturally.
Yeah. There was a nice discussion there about the cycle of karma. Material desire takes seed form, leads to sinful act, leads to suffering, manifest suffering, and then unmanifest suffering, which is manifest later. That whole cycle is like elaborately described there. But all this klesha, all this suffering actually is destroyed by bhakti at its root. It's not like just trying to massage it or deal with bad karma with good karma. It's like, no, beyond bad or good karma. It's like actually the root cause of all that is having turned away from Krishna. And bhakti itself is the real act of turning to Krishna. So it eradicates that whole problem. That whole cycle becomes changed. Thank you. 90% of spiritual advancement comes through japa. That's Srila Prabhupada's statement. So you can take that to the bank. It's good advertisement for our upcoming japa workshop.
January 11th.
January 11th.
10 to 4.
10 to 4 in this room, and also in this Zoom space. Be there.
You know, Shami, I feel like trying to like encapsulate what's the like an overarching theme of this text, and it's how what's coming to me is how the soul develops a relationship with Krishna,
Mm.
and it becomes uncovered through our practice of where we are, sadhana bhakti, right? And it's eternal and it's there, and where our work is to discover our personal relationship, our rasa, right, with Krishna, and that it doesn't matter what body you're in. There's like not the same sort of relationship between the material body and spiritual identity.
Yeah.
And like remembering that and being able to separate the two and really develop our relationship with Krishna versus being so attached to our relationship with our bodies and the other bodies around us.
Yeah. One of the more brilliant devotees in our movement, he left his body now, but he was a great devotee and a very brilliant one too. His name was Gopi Paranadhana Das. He said it's not so important what you know as who you know. You know? So you can add to that, it's not so important what you are, i.e. like your body, gross and subtle. And it's also not important what you know, it's who you know. And who you are, how you develop through that sangha, and how you develop through that practice. That's available for anybody, regardless of what they are. Yeah.
Who was that again? Gopi?
Gopi Paranadhana.
Do you want to spell that?
GOPI PARANADHANA. The supreme wealth of the gopis. Das. It's the name of Krishna. All right.
Can you hear me? I just wanted to say
Can.
one thing. The one thing that has stuck with me is I don't remember what chapter it's from or what exactly it was pertaining to, but how we are never too fallen for Krishna. And that he wants all of us to return home to him. And that always makes me feel like so comforted and loved.
Yeah. And bhakti is itself the most perfect practice of purification and rectification. If you're falling short, and bhakti itself is the solution. And there's always been somebody more fallen than us who's made it. It's like one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples was lamenting, Srila Prabhupada, I'm the most fallen person. Prabhupada said, with love, but he said, you're not the most anything. You're not the most anything. Don't let that be your hang up. Yeah. Your seva will save you. Yeah. That's one of my guru's godbrothers. I don't remember whom, but it was in St. Louis, Missouri. That was written on a sign in the Brahmacharya ashram. Your seva will save you. Seva means your service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seva will save you.
So we don't have to stop ever. We can pause for tonight, but we can also, and I'd love it if we did, keep reflecting on the WhatsApp chat through Christmas to keep the vibration going. And we can, if you want any more inspiration, or if you have any questions, reach out in the chat, or reach out individually. We can talk about Krishna and any aspect of practice to keep us Krishna conscious through the break. And I'm really hoping that we have a critical mass of interested people for December 31st, because I can't imagine going 3 weeks or 2, before the next class. So we'll have some Sangha, we'll reflect back. I mean, if you think about it, we've gone through the whole Bhagavad Gita, many of us. Nectar,
Last year.
yeah, I'm saying like from the beginning, Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Instruction, Ishopanishad, Light of the Bhagavad, just for fun, just threw that in for fun, which ended up being like, what a gem, right? Nectar of Devotion. And we get to just share our favorite parts of any of that and look forward to Krishna book, which is real treat,
Mhm.
real sweet one. So yeah, so keep it going and reflect back in the WhatsApp just to save me from Maya. Your best parts of the Nectar of Devotion. Any last words before we conclude today's class? Want to add anything?
Just a really sincere thank you, Shamya, for doing this. You're an amazing teacher and we really appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm really glad that I can represent some of the gifts that I've received, whatever good qualities you're seeing. They're the mercy of my spiritual masters, 100%. So let's have one Maha Mantra together in appreciation for Srila Prabhupada and his Nectar Devotion, for his disciples and the devotees, sincere devotees everywhere who are living this and teaching it, and for Rupa Goswami for being so perfectly instrumental for Lord Chaitanya and for Lord Chaitanya's inconceivably gigantic mercy on everybody. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Rupa Goswami, 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Lord Premanande Haribo, Hare Krishna. Everyone, please keep the transcendental vibration going. Happy chanting, happy service, happy everything. Haribo. Happy holidays.